everybody. We are here today and we're going to be talking with Renee Erdman of Bravo Dog in Vancouver, British Columbia today. The topic today is going to be talking about the links between emotional health and your dog's behavior. Before we get started, I just wanted to say hello and thank you to everybody for joining us and to encourage you to please ask questions. We will start out with a few questions I've got warmed up for Renee in the cooker, but we would love to have you join and ask us about the topic. We're getting started about a minute early. It looks like I got a little excited and hit the button kind of quickly. So I'm hoping that it didn't start too early for everybody. And we'll start with some intros and saying hello and encouraging everybody to say hello to us to let us know that you're out there and joining us. So let's get started with saying hello to Renee. And Renee can tell us a bit more about herself. She has multiple credentials and is eager to speak with us today. So let's go on over to Renee. Hello, Renee.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah,
joining us. I really appreciate it.
for
So,
sure.
can you tell us a little bit more about yourself first? You have many credentials behind your name, and I was trying to look them all up to make sure I knew what all of them were. But we met while you were attending school at the Academy for Dog Trainers. So that's how I got to know you. Can you tell me more about
Yes.
yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a trainer and behavior consultant, like you said, in Vancouver, BC. And in terms of credentials and education, I have a diploma in canine behavior and sciences technology. That's a one-year program. I have my academy, my certificate in training and counseling. So that was a 2-year program. I am an ACDBC with the IAABC, and nobody is going to know what that is if they're not a dog trainer.
I couldn't find what the A meant. I found the C, certified dog
I'm an
behavior consultant.
associate certified dog behavior consultant. Yeah, yeah. So through the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants. So those are my most. Oh, and I'm also an animal kind accredited through our BCSPCA, our shelter system here, which accredits trainers for the community. So yeah, we met through the academy, which amazing program. So very blessed to have been able to take that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I listened, you also have a podcast, which I think is fabulous. So I
Thank
frequently
you.
listen to
Yeah.
your podcast, which I enjoy very much. And when I was
Thanks.
thinking about guests, I was like, well, who the heck can I ask that, would feel comfortable, first of all, in front of the camera and talking, but have like a really, a different topic for us to talk about. And
Right.
so I thought of you, and I really appreciate that you reached
Thanks.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm comfortable talking behind the camera typically. Because when you're recording a podcast, nobody has to see you. You can be wearing your pajamas. You
Yeah.
can look like garbage and it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
Um, but regardless, I'm happy to come and talk.
Well, I
I can
appreciate
talk and
that.
talk and talk. For sure.
So let's start out first with how would you define emotional health for our companions?
Right. I think the how we could describe it would be how an organism copes or handles stress and changes in the environment, which ideally is balanced. It's not too extreme, meaning we don't have high levels of reactivity, that they can cope with these things. So that's sort of what I would say general description
Okay.
of that would be. Yeah.
Um, well, what affects our dog's emotional health, and like how much do we have at play, and how much of it is kind of like our dog's, genetic baggage that comes along, because it's never just one or the other; it's always a little both, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, there are several things that can affect emotional health. And some things we can control, some things we can't. Genetics definitely affect that, as well as the early environment, so socialization period, what the animal was exposed to. I mean, ideally, we have dogs that are resilient in our world, and that to me reflects that they would have pretty good emotional health. If animals are in environments where they are not getting access or adequate support for their emotional needs or their physical needs, then we've got problems, right? Or if they're living in environments that are unstable and inconsistent, then that can definitely cause problems too. But even, I'm sure nutrition is linked and health is linked to emotions as well, right? So there's so many factors.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So how could somebody as a dog's guardian be able to tell if their dog is emotionally healthy, and like what they could do to improve that, or what they may be doing not on purpose, inadvertently, that's causing their dog to be uncomfortable, and or I guess I'm saying uncomfortable, but behaviorally unhealthy, emotionally unhealthy.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we never know what an animal is actually feeling internally, right? Like it's impossible for us to know everything inside. But I would say that if behavior is changed or has changed drastically recently, there's something that they're doing that is not in the norm for them, that you want to address that. And vet checks are really important. That's the first thing that I would encourage a client to do if there's a sudden change. Then I would be looking at, is there reactivity and stress that they are able to identify visually, right? So body language is really, really important for people to be as savvy as possible. I do have a free body language course on my website that people can access if they'd like. It's pretty basic, but I think even starting with the basics is so important. So reactivity, that which can look like several things. It can look like, you specialize in separation anxiety. I'm sure there are lots of behaviors related to that could tell you that an animal's not emotionally healthy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. There's definitely a lot of ways. Biggest one for us, with us focusing on getting them comfortable and relaxed and okay being left alone. That's the biggest thing we're looking at constantly. But we're very big on data collection, and we have like a daily diary that we're having clients fill out, so we know what things are having positive or negative effects on how they're doing with their training. And I always explain to them when I'm like, I know this is a lot, I know I'm already asking of you a lot with your dog, but I promise that all of this details will be worth it, so that when your dog's not doing well, we can come back to this and start to say, okay, what do we see here for commonalities? When is it that your dog doesn't seem to be doing well on one of your homework assignments? Is it because I made it too hard? We pushed them too much. We missed a sign. Or is it every day after daycare, your dog tanks it? Maybe your dog is not coming home tired from daycare because they enjoyed it. Maybe it's because they weren't having a good time. So those are the different sort of things that we're looking for, for separation anxiety. And those are the ones I get the most data points from people.
Yeah, where it's a bit tough, like, if a client is, I kind of, ask clients, like, what percentage of the day is your dog, or how many times during the day have they had a high level reaction, barking, lunging, et cetera, that type of thing. That can give us an idea of, hey, the stress levels have spiked. And if they continue spiking throughout the day, we know that they really have a hard time coming down from that and having periods of rest. So that can affect their emotional health for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Their sleep patterns, what are they looking like? Do they have, are they waking up a lot? Are they not, are they restless a lot? That type of thing. And and then the basic necessities, of course, which is, are they companionship and mental stimulation and physical exercise? Does it look like they're enjoying engaging in those things? Because if a dog typically enjoys those things and then all of a sudden doesn't, then that can be an indication that there's an emotional issue there. There's something going on aside from the possibility of a health issue, which of course we're not vets, and that's why it's so important for them to rule that out.
Right, right. Okay. So, if a dog hasn't been with somebody for that long, I guess, if they're recently acquired, be it either as a puppy from a breeder or from a shelter, I guess it would be hard to have that baseline and know what's normal. And that's part of what's important for owners to learn how to read body language and start figuring out, is this normal or not? And is this normal or not for my dog? That's a big thing I keep trying to stress to people too is, while dog body language has a general dialect, just sort of like we speak English, but we all have our own little dialects or slangs, and so do our dogs. So, like my dog, Ed, he takes horrible.
Sorry, I love it.
He takes horrible pictures, and it's really hard to tell when he's happy. Even when I'm doing training with him, if you were just to be like average Joe, or heck, even a trainer, and you're looking at me training with him, he's so stoic and just like, and like the only way you can tell he's really engaged and into it is that if I stop, he starts to whine and will paw at me, or he's drooling because he wants the food, but he's hard to read.
Yeah. Well, and I think most unless you have just acquired a dog, is that they tend to know their dogs so well. We spend so much time with our dogs that they tend to notice these small things that are off. And at least my clients have, and which is great, because then they ask me, hey, is my dog depressed? Is there anxiety here? And of course, again, I don't diagnose these conditions. We do often work with veterinarians and veterinary behaviorists to, if it's a higher level where a dog is really under a lot of stress and anxiety. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Good. So I guess beyond body language, so if somebody's starting to watch their dogs, their normal, like how their body language, are they coming back down off of these events, like reactivity events? Is there anything else that we could look at? I mean, I guess, emotions are hard. I think they're even hard with people. I mean, with people can talk with us. Our dogs can't talk with us. So has there been any studies or any research on trying to figure these out? I know there's like brain scans and MRIs and things like that. Like, I'm really curious, and I feel like I'm always learning something new that people are researching about our companions.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot of new. We need more. Is basically there when you research dogs and emotional health, it's always the human side that comes up. The benefit of having a dog for the human's emotional health, yes. but there's not tons, at least out there, about what about animal emotional health, because there just isn't tons of new research or recent studies. Mark Bekoff has some great stuff that people can look at. And of course, PANCSAP, who most dog and animal professionals are familiar with, they can take a look at those things. There's also some studies about farm animal welfare in food production that people can look at too. So, we do have studies that demonstrate how stress and anxiety affect the physical well-being of an animal. So, those are things that we can look at, because it's all sort of working together, right? But the emotional stuff is a bit tricky, again, because we can't get into their head, and how do humans can express themselves through, language, whereas animals can't. So what are some, I think we just need more studies. I do think now that I'm thinking about it, was service dogs. And there was a recent study that I could dig up about the effect of working in certain environments, what that did to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
Yes.
I mean, environment really does matter for dogs, and that's something that I wanted to touch on too, is how important patterns and predictability can be for animals, because that equals safety, right? If you don't know what to expect, then that can cause anxiety in itself. I'm sure humans can attest to that. So, for dogs that might struggle with anxiety or fear, a lot of them, it can benefit from you having a predictable way that you might be doing things or training, and the training methods that you're using as well, really, really important, because we definitely know that using punitive training methods affects emotional welfare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And we do have studies to back that up.
we do. Yeah. We definitely do. Yeah. So I think if you're looking to help your dog, I just sort of circling back to, post adoption, I almost tell my clients, assume they need a good 6 months in terms of you to be able to see stable behavioral health, right? And for you to really understand what you're seeing in front of you, because it's just not early days. It's not representative of how they might be.
Mhm.
So limiting stress and anxiety as much as possible during those early, days and months is going to help everybody.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess
Yeah.
it's sort of a a silver lining, if you'd say, for our pandemic right now is we haven't been able to go out and be introducing our new dogs or puppies to everybody. That's the puppies is the hard part, of course. But,
Yeah.
it is an exciting time. And we are always like, oh my gosh, meet my new dog. And we want to take them everywhere. And certainly that can be stressful on our dogs who are just trying to acclimate to you and their new
Yeah.
environment to then be being taken everywhere for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and ideally we have these specimens that have, ideal genetics and had, the first 8, 9 weeks at the breeder, they did, an amazing job, and, some and many do, but a good chunk don't. And so we're not starting with a blank slate for sure for puppies, right? I'm sure you'll have a puppy expert on to talk about that. But, for them to become resilient, that, we can only do so much and we can try our best with our socialization. But if you are not socializing them and making a huge effort, especially during this time, then we're going to see some challenges.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. I always find it hard enough to explain to families what socialization actually is, that it's not exposure. It's not just
Yeah.
taking them places. It's about building quality interactions and associations. But yeah, right now is especially tough. So,
It is. Yeah. I mean, these dogs that are being adopted, that are adults, then great. It's giving them, that decompression time that they need and that sort of safe bubble, so that they can be gradually exposed to new things versus, take the dog home from the shelter, take them to the pet store the first day and go to a friend's gathering the next day. It's just, it's too much. And I think, again, it goes back to just the general public needs to know more about accurate dog behavior information on a
mhm.
whole, right? Not TV, you know, BS. I'm not gonna dance around it. A lot of it's BS, and that doesn't set the dogs up to succeed. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
I concur. What would you say is the most common thing that with clients that are coming to you that are affecting their dog's emotional health, that could be like your like here's one thing that I've learned, this is a really common thing, and stop and take a look at your life with your dog and evaluate it and think, does if I made this change, how could this help my dog, and of course you too, because you want your dog to be happy.
Yeah, of course. I think that these lower level fear responses that dogs are often showing that are not being recognized are a problem, because what happens is then the animal is continually put into those situations and it actually can get worse, right? So the misunderstanding that just exposure or continual exposure to something will make the dog happy at some point is something that I do see a lot of. Or if they see something they don't like, they, just the thought process of just stopping or suppressing behavior, which, it's human nature. We want unpleasant things to stop. But thinking about the dog at the end of the leash is that, why is this happening? We always have to get to a deeper level of why versus just the surface stuff. And that's why I think the emotional health and well-being and welfare of animals is so important for us to get in there and get as much as we can to dig a little bit deeper instead of the surface stuff that we're often seeing.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a long-winded response, but
No, I like it. I like it. It's definitely something even very simple things in a dog's life, to be honest, before I even get clients at the door, if we're working on something such as their dog is barking and acting forward, response aggressively towards people or dogs, besides, we talk about, of course, management right away. How can we help to rearrange things so your dog is not rehearsing this when you're not ready to train? Motivation, what do we have on board for that? And then gear, I'm asking them about. And I can't count on like, there's just so many dogs who people will say, oh, we use a front clipping harness, which is great. But then they say, oh, we have to chase them around to get it on them, or they flatten out like a pancake, or they shake and, hide. And then once it's on, it's fine. We go out the door. And like, even something like that, and it's hard because I know that they've got bigger things that they want to work on. You're like, we want to just work on getting a walk. But I'm like, if your dog has to go through that just to get outside onto a walk, and it's like, you think that, oh, it's benign because it's not harming them in our eyes, but they're obviously not comfortable with it. So it's hard to get people to slow down and say, hey, can we work on this first? Before we get out and try to work on changing how your dog feels about dogs and people and that sort of stuff. So,
yeah, that's such an important point. And you have to think too, like if you are suffering or your dog's suffering with behavior challenges like reactivity on leash, for example, the more they're reacting, and what I mean by reacting, or the more unnecessary stress throughout their day, including like you're talking about the harness, the more that's going to work against the goal, right? So, they're barking out of windows at things. They're, noise sensitive to the alarm, the noises in the building or people in the hallway, and then the harness, and all of that just stacks on top of each other. And that stress and anxiety is just going to hit, it's going to explode at some point. And often it's when they're out on that walk and they're wanting to change that reactivity, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah. And sometimes it's hard to explain how that all just adds up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a common one for me that I see. I don't know. Does any of our audience that's watching, does any of them have any common little things that they've noticed with their dogs that maybe you have thought about as you've been listening to Renee and I talk, that you could work on changing to see if you could make your dog feel more comfortable with, that may have seemed benign at first, but now you're like, oh, maybe my dog isn't comfortable with this or that, and how can I change it? We'd love to hear from you. So we'll wait a little bit just to see.
Grooming is another really common one.
Yes.
Right. Grooming, and just especially, we see so many Labradoodles and Labradoodle type dogs where I am, that it's just, gosh, we got to start when they're puppies and really work hard on trying to make good associations with that stuff. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think helping people to be advocates for their dog is also a very important part. And I always explain to them, like, if you're going to take your dog to the groomer, they, think about, I always say, think about how much, you're paying for the haircut. How quickly does your groomer have to get through this in order to make money? And how many people can you think would not be happy if they said, your dog wasn't enjoying this, so I stopped? I said, there's many people like that, but you can tell them you're not like that. You can tell them, I want my dog to feel comfortable. if my dog says no and starts to pull away, stop. I don't care if my dog has a uneven haircut, or I don't care if you only get 2 toenails done. You have to tell them that, because you're not the average Joe. And you need to
Yeah.
let them know that it's okay for them not to get the quote unquote job done. So,
Yeah, communication is so important. And even, going to the vet clinic these days it's handing the dog off and you're not going in with them, but you can still communicate with them. You can still give them that bag of treats. You can still tell them, "Hey, if there's a challenge here, please stop the appointment, come out
mhm,
and get me," versus getting the job done. And, I haven't basket muzzle trained him yet, so we don't want to use that. If there's a challenge, please just come out um and let me know so we can plan what to do next. So it's all, and a lot of veterinarian clinics are happy to work with you. It's just that communication. Um, we've got to advocate for them for sure.
yeah, exactly. They have to know. You can't just assume. We live in
No.
such a get it done society that that's what they're assuming that most people want, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And with Victoria here saying restraint at the vet for vet care. Yeah, her dog's not like that. Tracy Hansen says nails. My dog does not like having his feet touched and is noise reactive. Ah, yes, for sure. So, when we have issues with our dogs getting their nails done, I'm big about saying, hey, can we work through a training plan to help them to feel better?
Yeah.
Um, and if they really need to get their nails done, like they're like crazy claws, then what can you speak with your vet to discuss if there's an option for having them do it with some pre-pharmaceuticals up and running to help your dog to feel better, and then you go and start working again on it. I'm big at learning how to do this stuff for yourself, rather than farming it out personally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with like noise reactivity, that could be tough based on where you're living, you know. So what sort of, because Vancouver is a very very big city. What sort of things do you recommend for your clients, that who may have noise sensitive dogs on the management side or training side even?
Yeah, I mean, noise sensitivity is a tough one. Depending on the level of severity, I'm huge for get to the vet. These are the options that are possible, and planning ahead, because we know that for us, Canada Day is July 1st. You guys have July 4th. We have July 1st. And then, so we know when that's coming. We know when Halloween is, for example, if those are tricky times. So it's going ahead of time to talk to the vet. If it's super severe, then seeing a veterinary behaviorist, but not being afraid of being open to traditional medication, if that is what is recommended. Because there's no point in them suffering needlessly. And most people I talk to have no idea that that's even an option.
Right.
So I think people being aware of it and just knowing, yeah, if they're reacting so badly that they're hiding and trying to escape, that is really detrimental
Yeah.
for them, their emotional health and well-being.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And and I feel like, things like, let's say for example, just even living in an apartment or living in a busy downtown area, that can be a lot for our dogs, and then a lot for
Yeah.
us as owners. And it's normal for our dogs to do a little watchdog barking or something like that when we hear somebody go down the hallway or down the stairs, and you're like, oh, the 10th time you've done it, like, it's just stop it. And then you get upset with your dog, and then it's like you're barking back at them, and it's just it's a horrible way to feel. And just to be like that. So management stuff, when it comes to sounds, I'm a huge fan about white noise machines. And it's
Yeah.
something that I started using myself, which I didn't even like think about or know about, until we moved into this new house. And we moved, I wish I would have known about it when we were living in our previous place that we were renting, because we lived on a corner lot, and we had a big, nice 3-season sun porch area that you could go and sit on. but I had
Nice.
to add some visual blocks. So I put up some like paper to add the visual blocks so the dogs wouldn't bark. But then if you had the window open, they would hear and things
Mm.
like that. So when we moved here, the white noise machine was like a godsend because I can have that on. I don't notice it, and it helps so that my dogs weren't just sitting there like waiting for the next noise to come along so they could run to the window and see what's going on. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I've actually had a lot of success with that too with clients. Maybe their dogs startles in the night, just any kind of noise in the alley or in the hall. But just that white noise can be really helpful. I sleep with white noise myself because I need it myself. It's helpful for the humans and the animals sometimes. But yeah, it's anything you can do to help prevent it is just going to make life easier for
Yeah.
everybody, right?
Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
I sleep with white noise myself and it's like definitely loud when it's off. It's like,
Yeah, I'm addicted to it. I can't sleep without it. If I'm in a hotel or something, I have to have white noise. Yeah.
yep. Yep. Same. Okay, so I got another let's see, got a question here I'm going to pop up. Can you see that okay?
Hmm.
All right.
Mm. Oh, that's a great question.
I like that question. Good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really good question. Should I answer it or what my
Yeah.
thoughts are on it?
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to hear your thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, so enrichment. If we're talking about things like putting meals in food dispensing toys, for example, or let me start with that because then I thought of another situation. But a lot of times, if it's too difficult for the dog and it is then causing high level frustration, it is not then enrichment or to me beneficial for the animal. The goal for enrichment is to give them an outlet and not to frustrate the heck out of them. So if we're talking about that type of stuff, that's where I can think that it could subtract from emotional health. And then if you're taking them, say, on what you would want to be a decompression walk, for example, and you're taking them in the wrong areas and we're having reactions, I mean, that can definitely subtract from emotional health. Is that what we think? Is that what we're referring to, Victoria? That kind of enrichment?
Yeah, and I think while we're waiting for Victoria to answer, I think um, that's one that I have heard from different folks that they're afraid of the dog getting too frustrated, and I think for me it's obvious when a dog is like so frustrated that it's just
Yeah.
not the thing for them. But I also know how to jump in and help them out to figure it out. Um, like Ed loves puzzles. And I help him along the way, if he's super frustrated. Like I have some of those Nina Ottison ones that are like the wood ones that you have to figure out how to pull and push things. Oh my God, he about
Yeah.
lost his mind. Um, but when I put it on the table and then walked away, I was like, okay, this is enough of this. This is. He then put his feet up to try and get to it, and he's like 13 years old now. So if he
Aw.
makes the effort to put his feet up onto something, he must really
Yeah.
want it. So I was like, okay, you seemed like you were not digging this because it was a little too frustrating, but now you're asking for more. I think
Yeah.
maybe a good thing is teaching people too how to help their dogs with some things that they are finding a little frustrating to help teach them some new skills. At least that's my
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah. And then it's okay. And I really think that, yeah, there's always a balance, right? And you really do have to know your dog. But if there is a mentality that, dogs should have to work for everything, and, that's where I don't think it's healthy. I don't think that, I know that humans don't have to work for everything, affection and food and all of those things. So I think giving dogs the opportunity to also have free feeding meals combined with mental enrichment. So giving dogs choices we know can greatly affect them in a positive way, right? So, and the choice to say no or for things to stop can also really empower them, which is definitely linked to emotional health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How would you add that to the enrichment then? the power to say no, this thing is too, I don't like this thing, it's frustrating me.
Right. Well, I think that understanding signals from your dog when they've had enough is exactly what you were saying, right? Where, if they're backing off and not engaging anymore, definitely a sign, right?
Mhm.
If they're starting to vocalize, and most dogs end up giving up, and that's obviously a real sign that
Yeah,
they're just
and just
done.
walk away. Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. But in terms of like what we were talking about earlier with, grooming and veterinary care and procedural stuff, veterinary procedure stuff is for us to stop things when it's too much for them.
yeah,
That empowering them so that, can you imagine not having any control in your life or not having any power in your life?
yeah,
It would suck. And that's really what causes, I think, in some cases can cause, well, I need an outlet to control something. So I'm going to lick my hand over and over and over again,
mhm,
OCD type behaviors.
right.
I'm totally speaking anecdotally here, by the way. But I can imagine,
Right,
right?
right.
Yeah.
There's a really fabulous, and I'll have to find it and post it again. It was a man who was a German dog trainer who had made this really great video. It's all in German, but it doesn't matter because it's all about, it's two people, and it's one is the dog and one is the owner. And you watch this person who's acting as the owner, basically every time the dog goes to do things, it's grabbing her by the belt and moving her along, or shooing her this way or going that way.
Mm,
Um, and it's really eye-opening and enlightening. I love to bust it out at least once a year, just to be like, hey, like, think about your life as your dog. Like, you have control over everything in their lives. And we can give our dogs things for free, and think about taking them to allow them to do the things that they want. And start
yeah.
taking our agenda off a little bit. Everybody's like, ooh, I got a dog for exercise so I can take walks and things like that. And they're like, when I'm out walking, I want to go and do something. I was like, so does your dog. It just
Yeah.
doesn't fit necessarily with what you were thinking that was exercise. But they're getting exercise a different way. So
Yeah, I mean, there are some people that get animals, for the wrong reasons, and maybe that sense of control over something, which is an animal, is reinforcing to them. Who the heck knows, right? But I think that it goes back to having, the right information out for the general public, which is that no, your dog's not trying to control your life, and that actually, if you give them options and choices, that they're going to be happier, and then you're going to be happier because their behavior is going to be more stable, right?
yes.
So,
I almost
yeah,
think we could apply the give your dog consent test for things pretty much all through their lives. Like, are you enjoying
yeah,
this or not? Stop. Are you liking, the touching? Are you liking the way that we're doing this? Are you liking that? And they're gonna tell you either by
yeah,
re-engaging or just saying, yeah, no, I'm good. So
yeah, yeah, and it points to the relationships that we have with our dogs. Is it a partnership or is it a dictatorship?
mhm.
Right.
Yep, yeah, I agree 100% there. Yeah. Okay, well, I just want to see if we have any other questions here. Oh, it looks like Tracy's husband is on it and gonna buy a white noise machine. Yay, good. You're
Well,
gonna be
that's
so
good.
happy. So happy. It was a life changer for me. I was so really happy when I got mine. Um, okay,
I just
so
actually stream white noise on my phone.
uh-huh.
But you can stream like through Spotify. There are white noise playlists. So if you don't want to buy a machine, you can just have a playlist of like 10 hours of white noise or 9 hours or whatever, and play it through your whatever listening device you have.
Yeah, Bluetooth speaker rocks. That's what I have next to my
Yeah.
bed. And use for
Yeah.
my white noise, I use an app on my phone.
Nice.
But I
Yeah.
needed my own white noise, so the dogs needed their own machine.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay.
Well, is there anything that you would like to leave our guests with, thought wise, or anything about emotional health? Oops, we just got one more question. Um, Here, I'm going to pop this up. This is a great one for Renee to answer or give her feels on, because this is a tough one.
Right. Okay. Many advice for rescue dogs who have been abused and struggle to self-soothe. So self-soothe, does that tell me what, if you can, Elsie, tell me what that means to you? I can't say it. Self-soothe,
Self-soothe.
self-soothe.
Especially if you start talking really fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would need to know what that means. Unless Jennifer, you have a better idea of what self-soothe means. Um,
Um,
Stress and
maybe.
anxiety, maybe?
Yeah. Maybe my first thought, and maybe Elsie can tell us if this is right or not, is that, can they come back off of something and cope and be able to say, hey,
Right.
this is okay. I don't need to freak out about this like after the event is done. Um, that's sort of what I would
Right.
get in my
Yeah.
head.
I think some general advice. So if we know what is triggering for a dog, whether it's men, for example, I think it's important to identify the trigger first. For us, what we've seen is can't calm down or find things he likes.
Yeah.
Okay, so um, maybe so finding things that he likes. So I think that you could audition lots of different items for him to engage in. So he'll often panic, and yes, exactly. Okay, so let me go back then. So if we identify what is triggering for an animal, and then if we can try and work on the emotional response, which if it's a negative towards something, we're going to see behaviors that we don't like, right? Like barking, could be even avoidance and just indications that the animal is stressed. Ideally, we put together a training plan that involves counter conditioning. So, what that means is that when you see that thing that is triggering, from a distance, ideally, something positive happens. So, food is an excellent way to do that and to make an animal feel better. Now, if animals are not taking food in certain situations, that is an indication that we are likely too close to the thing, or the environment is not setting us up to succeed. So we want to work on changing the emotional response for the dog, and working with a trainer is what I would recommend. Then, and if I'm off track and you're talking about, well, after the event has happened and we've come home, the dog is vigilant and can't settle, then that would mean auditioning different items for the dog, meaning, okay, different foods that the dog might engage in. Do they like to chew? Do they like to engage in play? Does that help to bring them down? Does a decompression walk somewhere help them? So it does take testing these things.
Mm.
Those are my thoughts.
Yeah. And I'd also say that like after you've tried out those different things, if that is still not working, then reaching out to your veterinarian. Because sometimes our dogs just need a little extra help, just like we do. And medications can help to get them off that giant roller coaster so that but medication always goes hand in hand with behavior mod. It's not going to fix it on its own. You need to be, like Renée said, counter conditioning to help them to change how they feel about that thing that's getting them, if it's anxiety, helping them to feel better about it. If it's just that they get so amped up with like play or something like that, what else can we do to help them to, chill out afterwards? Giving them smaller doses of the play, little breaks and things like that. So yeah, that would be a great thing for you to reach out about. Oh, good, good. I'm glad that was helpful, Elsie. Thank you for asking the question. That was fabulous. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on the hunt for some of those different studies that that you mentioned by Mark Beckoff. Um, there's also a really great one that Julie Naismith shared with me about how stress changes your brain structure even. That's really fabulous. And they've
Yeah.
done a ton of studies in humans with that. And it's really, I think it just really helps you to look at when our dogs do have these stressful events that, it wasn't just a thing that happened. Like, it really changes them. Just like
Yeah.
traumatic things change our lives. But we just have more control over our lives in general.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'll put some of those on there because I know some people like to do extra reading, like myself and Renee. We weren't always dog trainers. We were just dog geeks and learning things as we went along. And I'm just kind of got into it and then got addicted to it. So we'll put that
Yeah.
out for people who are interested. And do check out
Cool.
Renee's free body language course on our website. It's bravodog.ck.
CA. CA. Yeah.
You can check that out there. And Renee's always putting good content out there to help to educate folks so you can learn more. That's what it's all about. You know, when you know better, you do better. So we're
So
all
true.
about providing that education for everybody. Okay. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for joining us, and thank you
Thanks
for
for
going
having me.
over time as I usually end up doing, even though I say it's going to be a half hour, it ends up longer. So,
No worries. Thanks so much for having me.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, and you have a good
All
rest of
right.
your night.
Thanks. You too.
All
Okay.
right.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So, thank you again, everybody, for joining us. Next Monday is our now once a month Monday Q&A. That's just open to whatever questions that you guys have for us. Well, we do hope to get a few before we start so that I'm not sitting here talking to myself, but I can always find a topic to talk about, that's for sure. After our first Monday of the month live Q&A, then our next guest, let's see here, our next guest is Renee Rittmaster, and she's going to be talking about skijoring and other dog harness sports with your dog, which is fabulous because we've finally, have enough snow to be doing these things. We need things to do to get out of the house. Why not do something fun with our dogs? So we're excited about that. We'll be sending you some teaser videos and posting about what skijoring is, because most people, when I say it, are like, what the heck is that? You're going to find out, and you're going to have a lot of fun. If you are already doing, say, cross-country skiing, we can add your dogs in there. All right, and thank you to everybody for joining us, and we will see you next Monday. Thank you.